we go. Good evening, Mr. Robin Booth.
Yeah, Jacques. Good evening to you as well. Looks like you're in a warmer place than I am because it's been raining and cold here in Cape Town. As you know, I'm mostly based in Knysna, and I came down to Cape Town for a couple of reasons. The main one, actually, the most exciting one, I think I mentioned it to you before, was bond and transfer papers have been signed for my new penthouse, which is Airbnb focused. So that's super, super exciting. And while down here, I also got some other stuff to do, because I have multi-lets and student housing and other things. And but it's cold, and it's there. So yeah, it looks like you're a bit warmer than I am, to be honest, at the moment.
Yeah, we've got some erratic weather here. We've had freezing cold. Today is 24 degrees with 100% humidity. And from tomorrow, it's snowing very close to us. So it's going to be freezing from tomorrow forwards. So yes, exciting time. But congrats on the penthouse. Well done.
Yeah. I'm actually, I can feel my focus is around that. I'm going in tomorrow, this tenanted until the end of July. And it might actually be worthwhile chatting about some of that. That kind of stuff around, well,
absolutely.
What do we do? Or for someone who, whether it's rent to rent or buying, and you've got a date at which you take the occupation, whether again, rent or buying. And, I'm going in there because I'm buying it. In this case, it's unfurnished. I go in tomorrow while the tenant is there. I've got 2 hours and I'm going to go do all the measuring up. So what I do is I measure, obviously, the main things like how big is for the dishwasher, the washing machines, the fridges. And then I also do spatial measurements of the lounge, the bedrooms. And then I come home and I draw it up to scale. And then I start cutting out possible lounge and dining room tables. And because I'm not there, I can't go in there and fit something and take it out. I want to visually get a sense of it and work it and see what would happen if I changed it this way, what would happen if I changed the bed around that way. And I actually start mapping this out so that I can already buy my furniture a month before I move in. I'll store it, get it all ready, start getting the listings in place. So all this kind of prep work before we take occupation. I've got another client at the moment who's also she's taking occupation of a rent to rent in June, I think mid-June. And I said to her, so is it listed? Are you already taking bookings? And she's like, no, because I haven't got it. I haven't taken had key handover. And I'm like, well, you could already have it up there. You could have bookings so that literally day one, it's fully furnished. Literally from day one, as you take the key, it could even be that night you're getting bookings already. And she's like, oh, okay. And I could see she was just leaving money on the table. Yes. And when I told her that, I said, you're leaving money on the table. Wow. She was so upset because my God, there's all this money that she's leaving on the table and not getting action. And it's those kinds of things. And then she says, but I haven't had the photographers to go in there. And I'm like, well, and I actually explained this in the course, right? I think you would have seen it there. How do you list it without having transfer? How do you do all these kinds of things? And I mentioned it to her. I said, well, you saw this listing on a platform. I think it was Property 24 or something. So it's already got good photographs. It's furnished, the same furniture. So use those as your listing. And when you get your own photographer in there to take the ones you want, well, then you can just swap it out because it's not really going to change. But that means you can already have it live. You can get bookings already. And suddenly she was like, oh, my God, I could actually do a whole lot more than what she was doing now. So all those kinds of things. And I'm going to come back to the course. All those things I keep mentioning in the course about how to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. Because we know, Jacques, that traditionally people are like, oh, there's 30% occupancy rate, or it's low season, and this and that. And I'm like, well, if you don't apply the skills that we know and teach in our courses, then that you're just going to be average. No way average. Sorry, man. That's just not on. Average is not good enough. And if it means money and that means time for you to do other things, then get that sorted so that you can actually enjoy and reap the benefits of it. Because increased occupancy is a huge factor in successful Airbnb.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think people underestimate as well what they can actually do legally and ethically with a property before they've taken transfer and actually have access to it, right? Because they think they cannot ask for these things. And we've proven that you can pretty much ask for anything and you'll usually pretty much get it, right? And if a landlord or an agent sees that you're prepared, you know what you're speaking about, and that's where the course comes in, because it prepares you for these discussions. It tells you exactly what you need to plan for. Like you were saying, now you make up drawings of the actual layout so that you can go plan what you need to buy. These things are crucial because people think, oh, but I might not even be in the same city, I might not have access. It doesn't matter. All of these things can be done. And if you are able to list your place a month before you actually take transfer, you can make a lot of money by being fully booked. And as you said, your occupancy rate just skyrockets from then, because we know that in the first 30 days, right, a listing gets pushed and it's like throwing fire or gasoline on a fire. But if you're able to actually then reap those benefits already a month prior to launching, you can just set yourself up for success. So thanks for sharing that.
All those kinds of things, those tips and tricks that we need, whether it's you're just starting up a listing or carrying on going, all those things are going to be absolutely critical to get it going. So yeah, I like that. And like I mentioned, there are a whole lot of other things that we could probably touch base on around how to set it up and start it up. I know we've got some questions for tonight, hopefully some live questions as well. Otherwise, who knows, this could just be a recording and we're faking it. Exactly. And this was actually recorded 3 months ago. And this is it. This is the opportunity for people to actually ask us and get real confirmation back. I did see that some questions did come through, so I think it would be worthwhile for us to chat about that. There is one thing before, because I know that once we get into people's questions, it could just go all different ways. There's something that I thought that would be just an interesting update. We haven't touched base on it, but with the latest Airbnb rollout of their latest, shall we say, all their updates, which they sometimes put in, and it changes the algorithms. There are a couple of new features that they have put in place and are trying out. And one of the ones that are worthy of commenting on is their party blocker algorithm, the one which, Airbnb has been really strong on. They don't want their places to be used for events and parties. And if you're a host, man, that's just not great. One, the damage, and two, the risk of the neighbors, especially in apartment blocks, just basically saying, we hate Airbnb, it's noisy, there's no care, we're going to shut it down. And then suddenly they put in a new resolution and body corporate rules. And that's just not what that's risky for us. So what's interesting is they created an algorithm that starts searching for these booking requests and measures them against certain criteria, which they deem would be an indicator of whether a party has been held or not. So, for example, they pick up the IP address of where the person is who is booking, and they notice, hey, I think we might have chatted about this even. It's just down the road from you. So why would someone who lives there be booking out a place for 1 or 2 nights with a large number of people, like 6 guests? If they live so close, it's like, and then they say, listen, there's a whole lot of stuff here which looks like this is dodge, so we're going to block it. Now, as much as we love that, what I have heard back from some of my own students and clients is that some legit guests who have wanted to book like for 3 or 4 days are blocked. In other words, the booking says this booking request has been blocked because it looks like it could be for a party, and it's not. So it looks like there's some tweaking in there. So I know some hosts out there are feeling a bit frustrated because they're feeling they're leaving money on the table in not getting that back. So that's just an interesting little curveball that's come around from that algorithm change.
Yeah, I've had 2 experiences with this. I have one apartment where my neighbor regularly gets family and they want to book my place so that they can live next door, and it was blocking those bookings. And I felt that this was they dropped the ball from Airbnb's side, where they should inform you that it's been blocked for this reason, but then you should be able to allow it and say, I think this is legit. I want to engage with this person at least. And the other one is, we know it's common. People get family and visitors and they want to book a separate lodging for their friends and family, and those things will now also get booked. I don't know if you can speak to this, but does it also look at the reviews of the person? So if it's a long-standing profile with 5-star reviews, are you more likely to go through even if you're next door?
Yeah, so from what I have read and understand about it, is it takes quite a few pieces of information and compile some kind of a a profile, I guess, or like I
Yeah.
said, indicator, previous reviews, whether they would host again or not, whether they have previous comments or messages or some other situation where maybe they did have a party or broke rules.
Yeah.
There are quite a few different things I think that they put in place. That I don't know what else they do, but it's an interesting one that I'm sure helps us, but also can
Yeah.
as I say, actually prevent some stuff from happening. So that can be a bit of a pain.
Yeah,
Another
absolutely.
update that I would like to touch base on just before going to the questions is, so one of the things I also do before I go and either buy a new property for Airbnb or, actually, let's keep it to the Airbnb, is I go and stay in that building, or if I can, in that unit, if it's possible, and
Yes.
it's already on Airbnb, because I want to get a sense of a feel for the place. So in this building where I've now got the penthouse, while in Cape Town, instead of staying in my normal units that I come when I'm here, I decided to go stay in that building and to have like 3 days and 3 days in different units facing the different views to see and feel what happens. And also I start to like formulate how would the guest check in, how can I automate it, what would be important, where will the keys be left? And I like to be really clear on that and formulate those things. So I learned a couple of things, but what's so useful around this is a reiterance that if you do not have backup power, you're going to lose significant business.
Yeah.
I have had 2 cancellations in the last month on my one building because the body corporate is taking so long to get backup power to the lifts that people are saying, I can't come there on the 9th floor if you don't have backup power. That's significant. It's going to become now the norm that people are going to ask, do you have backup power? And so that's significant. That's the first thing. The second thing is I had to leave there to come to my other unit, which has these big 130,000 Rand inverters in now. I've put in the last 3 weeks because the previous inverters, which had the lead acid, all boiled. Like I had guests phone me and saying, there's a terrible smell here and it's boiling. Yeah. Like, oh my God. And I had to like crisis manage. So now I've got the proper legit, like full on kitted out thing. But otherwise, I couldn't be chatting to you today. So there I am coaching the whole day today. And then load shedding kicks and they've got nothing. No emergency light, no candles, nothing for the Wi-Fi. I'm telling you, whoever is watching this, if you do not sort out backup power, and the least is backup lights or battery LED lights or something, and then Wi-Fi, TV, you're going to get just totally get left behind. If you want to differentiate, you need to have all those things in place. It's just, they certainly won't get a good review from me, not because I'm spiteful, but because I can't function in my business, and I certainly would be pissed off on a 4-hour delay of those kinds of things. At least I bought in that building because I knew they had a generator for the lifts. That I knew that I had sorted that out because I learned it in this case when I bought here 2 years ago. You need to have those things in place. Yeah. But these are the kinds of things that if you don't adapt and sort this out, you will get like in my case, there's a resentment that, I come here and I'm expecting the basics. It used to be, I don't know if you ever traveled, Jacques. I know I'm rambling on, but this is actually really interesting because I don't talk about this in any of my other webinars and other stuff.
It's good, go for it.
But I don't know if you ever remember, if you've ever been traveling on Airbnb, when you had to pay for data usage at the place you were staying. It would you'd have to pay for 150 megabytes to use while you were at your Airbnb staying place. And I was like, man, this is not good, because that was obviously the norm. Then it became the norm that Wi-Fi is included and Wi-Fi is good. Now it's still at the stage where you have load shedding lights, these like emergency lights that are bright and weird and cold. That is kind of now, if you don't have that, you're not great. We're soon going to have where people not just have emergency lights, but at least your lights, Wi-Fi, and TV are on the circuit. Yes, I mean, you might hear I've got the washing machine going on, so my place is now fully I'm function during load shedding. But if you don't be proactive around this, you're definitely going to lose money on the table. And with Airbnb, I've done the numbers. I know that I'll make my money back way quicker than anything else. to make sure I've got all those things in place. So again, people, this is not just about how to scrape it and hopefully, make it through. This is about, like I said, you want to dominate, you want to increase and differentiate. The more we can be different from what everyone else is out there in a smart way, then the better we're going to be. So, those are my thoughts that I thought we'd share in this update of what's really, really important.
I'd like to touch on some of them. So, look, the market has already decided that this is how it's going to go. I would say 80% of my requests, sorry, apologies. The first thing that they ask is, do you have backup power? And what's the load shedding situation like? Even though it's clearly spelled out in my listing, that is the first question I get. So the market is already deciding we don't want to stay in places that are affected by load shedding. And if you don't adapt, you will feel that pain. That will drop your occupancy from your high 90s, if that's where you were, to probably 60%, because those are the guys that are not going to ask. But I think as the situation worsens, it's just going to skew completely to the one side, to the people that have catered for this. And it's not that expensive, right? I have spent about 8,000 Rand in total, and there are adequate backup power in the apartments now. The Wi-Fi never goes off. There's lights, there's gas cooking, the works. You can run the TV, you can run lamps, so it's not that expensive. Obviously there are better solutions out there, but with regards to staying in your own units, that is the most valuable information that I've ever gotten. And I like to actually go and live there for 2 or 3 days and actually try everything. Like if we have a barbecue, I want to use it. And then I have to ask myself, okay, but where's the utensils? Okay, but what's missing here? Like, how would I have liked this better? And you will never know that if you don't do it yourself. You will get complaints about it, but you can get in front of a lot of these things and just make it easy for yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you also mentioned that. And I know we talk about that again in the course. That kind of, if you don't live in it, you're relying on someone who just is here for 2 hours or 3 hours to clean, to somehow notice all the details. And they don't notice those things, and not certainly the way you would, who is focused on this.
They're not incentivized.
That's the important thing. Yeah. And that's what I've realized. So it's a job description of mine to come back and, well, of course I want to stay in my places. I mean, they're on the beachfront, you've got views of Table Mountain, and they're right there. Like, of course. But the point is not just that. It's because I also know that as a business person, and again, I want to stress, if we're not treating this as a business project, even if it's your first Airbnb, even if it's just a 10,000 Rand rent to rent and you're making 10,000 Rand profit, it still is worth your while just spending time there and checking to see if stuff is on track. So I'm a big fan of that. And you just go from one to another and spending a night or 2 nights just to check things out. And in the long run, way, way better. You do see things that just no one else can. So very much so.
Agreed. Cool. Let's get to the questions. So I'm going to give preference here and priority to Tembisile because she's live and she's asking a bunch of questions. So let's give her the floor, and then we'll go to the pre-sent questions that someone sent to us via Facebook and WhatsApp. So I'm going to pop up Tembisile's first one here. Just give me 1 second. This thing is super slow here. Seems that when we're streaming,
it feels like an exam. Like, I feel like you're like going to pop me a question. I'm going to have to oh my God, have I studied this correctly? What's the answer going to be?
Okay, so here's the first one. So Temisile says, hi there. I'm seeing a lot of furnished apartments for sale lately. Is it possible to not buy, but rent them and run them as an Airbnb? Okay, so they're for sale, furnished. And is it possible to rather run them as a rental? Over to you.
So I'm curious that's an increase in sales if we're seeing furnished apartments for sale. That would be amazing if it's good furniture and what you would want to put in an Airbnb. My apartment, this penthouse that I'm getting now, has the furniture for sale. And I'm like, nope, not going to go down that road at all, because then next thing I know is the mattress is already 6 years old. And depending on what you're looking for, I don't want to have that kind of scenario. Plus, with the appliances, I want to know that I've got a warranty that if this isn't great, I can take it back. Especially for something like that, like a penthouse, I need it to be at a certain quality. I don't want it to be I don't want to say secondhand because that's not what I'm doing. It's not about snobbishness. It's around I'll pay something very similar in any case. So in my case, it's strategic. I wouldn't do that. I love the rent to rent being furnished, 100%, especially because the rent to rent is a cash flow model. And we have spoken about this, Jacques, and it's, in the course, again, I talk about the difference between rent to rent and buying to put on Airbnb. If you're wanting cash flow, like extra cash every month to buy stuff, to travel more, to pay for your kids' education, or just to save up, then the rent to rent is the best model, because that rent to the value of the property is so great that you will get more profit at the end of the day. If you're going to buy a property, you're going to have to, one, put in a lot more money, because generally you're going to have to put in some kind of deposit, plus buy your furniture, plus have your rates, taxes, and all those other things. So you will have a lot more of expenses. Your profit will be less, but yes, you're getting a property. You're buying and adding a property to your portfolio. So depends where you're at in your life and what you're looking for and what your goal is. Mine at the moment is buying. I want to increase high value assets in my portfolio. And I started off doing all the rent to rents, and I still have the rent to rent to make sure that, I'm also keep my finger on the pulse there. But in this case, 100%, Timber Seed, I would, if you can get those rent to rent furnished, would be amazing. You can maybe propose to someone who is wanting to sell a property and say, I will pay you, market related rent. Whether or not that is why they want to sell, I don't know. Would have to certainly check that. There would also be another thing that I'd like to add in around buying a property that is inclusive of furniture, is that also depends on where you're at in your purchasing space. And what I mean by that is, if you can get 100% bond on that property with the furniture, then in effect you have got finance for buying furniture. If I buy an empty property with 100% finance, I'm still going to have to go and buy furniture now out of cash in my pocket. So if you're buying a property that is furnished, in effect the bank is also giving you money to buy your furniture, because that's included in the bond. So that's also one element. Now, someone might say, but Robin, that increases the purchase price, so therefore increases the transfer duty on the increased value. Well, that's what I'm saying. Depends on where you're at. If you've now got the bank to finance you, you might find that the increase in transfer duty is not all that much out of that. If it is something that you want to buy the furniture and the property, you can sometimes separate them into different sales. This is the value of the property, and thank you, I'll get my bond onto that, but I'm going to buy my furniture separately under a different agreement with the seller. So you still get both, but you actually separate them from the bond to the furniture. I've also done that at different times. So just again, always comes down to what do you need, what's your goal, what's your purpose, and then you create that to surround yourself from that perspective. Any comments you want to add to the Jacques?
Yes, I just want to add a final one. So because when I read this, we attack this from many angles, and I was wondering here at the end whether it wasn't the thing that you touched on, that she's trying to convince the seller to actually rent the property to her. And I wanted to add that I've had experience with that, where I was renting a property and then I wanted to Airbnb it. I was living there personally, and the owner said to me, "Look, we put this place in the market for 20,000 Rand a month to rent, and we have no bites after you when you're leaving, but we want to sell it. We want to get rid of it." And I asked them, what would make it worth it to you not to, because I knew what my minimum was that I wanted to rent it as an Airbnb, and 20 was a great deal. And I asked them, what would convince you not to sell this place and rather rent it to me long-term as an Airbnb? And we agreed on a number, and that was 23. And that's it. Like, for me, that had still a lot of runway on profit. And I still have that place today, 3.5 years later, and it's now 24,000 Rand a month. So the reality is, an owner can be convinced as long as you make it worth their while and actually change the outcome that they had in mind, and they can still carry the property. That's sometimes difficult if they have a very high value property and it's fully maxed out in terms of affordability. Then it might be a different conversation, especially in a place like Cape Town. But luckily, these owners owed very little on their property, and that more than covered their mortgage. So,
Excellent.
Okay. Let's take that one off the screen. Let's add the next one. Okay, also Tembisile. She's got a lot coming here. So here we go. Next one. Is it possible to do an installment sale with a B&B or a hotel and turn it into an Airbnb? Or is it safer to keep to smaller apartments? I want to tackle this one first, if you
Go for
don't
it.
mind. So, from our experience, we've done one installment sale for an Airbnb, which is old hotel rooms, which were sectionalized. And we own some of them outright, which we just bought in the traditional manner, and one in an installment sale. They are very low value properties. So, they cash flow extremely well compared to what we actually paid for these things. So, it can be done with smaller properties. With regards to an actual running B&B or a hotel, I'm sure you can. I think obviously there might be a much higher mortgage there and you'd have to run your numbers. But yeah, it's entirely possible to do it with an installment sale and then turn it into an Airbnb. So I will hand it over to you for some additional commentary.
Yeah, I think it's it's best for us just to separate these in some ways, because there's buying it through an installment sale, there's hotel or B&Bs, and then there's, well, what's the difference between multiple apartments, small apartments, or a bigger, more expensive one? So let's tackle it. The installment sale, outright purchase, cash purchase, seller finance, kind of installment sale, or money lending, or a whole lot of other. That's how you can structure it if someone is willing to sell that to you and whatever that looks like. I would assume, yeah. So let's do that. B&B or hotel. I just want to check. We're still on here.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just had something happened. Sorry. So whether it's a B&B or hotel, my concerns about that is a bed and breakfast is usually set up as a catered environment, a bed and breakfast, which means that the rooms are probably en suite, but they're not self-catering. So that kind of can detract from people who are looking for a self-contained unit that's private, that there's no common area that they're moving through or walking in. So that could be one thing. A hotel, 100%. A lot of hotels put their stuff on Airbnb. My concern, and I've shared this and I talk about it again in the course, is and you might have experienced this, I'm not sure, Jacques, so it'd be good to hear your feedback, is if a B&B and a hotel will have multiple rooms that are very similar. So if now there are a lot of those, you're competing against everyone else who have the same value proposition, which means you're going to compete on price and not on value. Yeah. There's a lovely quote for me, which is, in the absence of value, people compete on price. In the absence of value, in other words, if I can't see what the value is that I'm getting from that product or that apartment, how it differentiates, then I'm just going to compare one to another. Take, for example, when you book a hotel, they will have an example of a room. Why? Because that room is like every 30 others. You don't book that specific, I want room 801 when I go to that hotel. You book it, you get there, and they say, I see you've bought the economy one, so here it is, and you go there. You have no way of saying what you want. That's because they're all the same. So that, for me, is the concern, is it just becomes average, and then you're competing against just everyone else out there. And I'm not a great fan of that model if you're just having something just like someone else. So let's leave that one there. The other one about small apartments or not, let me put it this way. So recently in a town that I was staying in, there was this property that I've been watching over a while. It's 8 units. Each unit is different. It's fantastic. And it's for about like 8.5 million. And I realized that if I get it, I can split it up into long-term and Airbnb and generate about 120,000 Rand rent a month. Like, okay, that will cash flow. No, it will pay for everything. It will sort itself out. But then I'm like, wow, 8 different units. That's 8 sets of guests for any time period. That's 8 geysers, probably 12 toilets, 12 bathrooms, because obviously some have 2 rooms in them, and a whole lot of stuff. And then I came across another apartment, just one apartment that was also for 8 million. And I realized that on Airbnb, I could also generate about 120,000 on that. So the question was pretty simple. For the same amount of money, I could either do 8 times the amount of work, or I could have just one apartment with one set of guests and get the same return. Yeah. And I just realized yeah, there's some benefit to going to the small apartments, but if you actually look at what it takes the same amount of
Yeah.
effort when we are on the short-term letting spaces to have a guest check-in or check-out. And you know what the irony is as well, there, Jacques, is that probably that geyser in that 8 million rand property is probably the same kind of type of geyser as will be in each of those smaller units. Same toilet, same kind of stuff. It's going to cost the same amount for a plumber to come out to your 10,000 rand rent to rent as to your 120,000 rand rent to rent. So I have quite a lot of students at the moment exploring that niche of 110 to 160,000 rand per month rent to rent, with that 3.3 million rand annual income on that rent to rent.
No, you make a valid point. Like,
so
you
I hope that
don't
that
always have
answers your
to
question.
aim small now. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, that was very insightful. I'm gonna keep plowing through here because the comments are rolling in. So let's see how many of these we can cover. Okay, next one again from Temisile. Do you have to apply area research to make sure that you're in the right spot for higher occupancy? And what do you look at in the area that says this area is Airbnb friendly? So to the master himself that taught all of us, there you go.
Well, I'm going to refer straight back to Temisile. I love your question. Sounds like you have the right mindset and the right attitude. Get that course. Because I explain all these things about how you look for it, how do you cross-reference it. Here in South Africa, we don't have the data that in the US or some of the other countries have, where there are programs that can tell you these are good Airbnb areas. And not only that, they tell you these are the good rental arbitrage Airbnb areas. And what I mean by that is the rent-to-rent area, where they tell you what the rental price is, and they tell you how much you can get on Airbnb, and they tell you the profit you can make. Like, wouldn't that just be so amazing if we could do that here in South Africa? But here we don't have that. We have to kind of look at, what does that place and that suburb look like? We've got to scrape that on Gumtree, Property 24, private property. We've got to look for that. Then we've got to go and find out on Airbnb. Well, what are they predicting we could get? Then we've got to go onto the Airbnb platform to look to see if there are other Airbnbs in that area. Then we've got to look to see if we can cross-reference, is the pricing that the software tells us is correct as the daily rate. Then we do this workaround and we kind of start to get a feel for it, and then we make that decision. It's not easy, but this is the point. Because it's not easy, people don't do it, which means you, who knows how to do it or learn to do it, when you do it in the course, you will figure out how to then dominate and choose correct places. So what is a problem to some becomes our benefit if you figure out how to unlock that scenario. And that, for me, is the biggest learning around what we're doing. It's like where there's challenges for some, there's benefits to other. And here in South Africa, wow, we can so easily differentiate and outperform our people around us because they're just lazy. I'm sorry, Jacques, you and I have talked about this before. It's like they just think like, okay, I'll just put it on Airbnb. I'll take I keep referring to in the course, I go live on, and I record me going live, and I go through other people's listings and I crit them and saying, look at this. And there's one there. There's actually a couple there. There's one where they have an upside down photograph of a room. And I'm like, really? You think I want to come to a place if you have an upside down photograph? Then there's another toilet. One all that as well. And then there's a bedroom and there's like washing, and the lady's got all the underwear, and I'm like, really? Like, I don't get it. So come on, we can do better than that. So if you do better than that, you're going to get chosen and outperform. I'll tell you where the risk, well, it's not a risk. There are people out there, lots of people, Jacques, who are doing the course, who are figuring it out. And I'm seeing that now the competition is getting a little bit tighter. So even more reason why you have to know how to outperform your person around you. Otherwise, we're just going to lose out.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So look, the course is the best resource because this is only one small part of finding the right Airbnb and locking in that Airbnb, because you made a valid point there that I'll touch on. And then another thing, the competition is fierce, right? We are still looking for Airbnbs in Cape Town. And I do still find Airbnbs, and then sometimes I disqualify them for different reasons. But the reality is, I know that agent has probably received 5 phone calls that day from different people, and I know who those people are because they tell me. But the reality is, it's tight out there, and you need to differentiate yourself. And if you're a newcomer, there's a different way you're going to do it than someone like ourselves that have a track record. Because I just send them my Airbnb profile. There's almost 1,000 5-star reviews on there with properties. They're like, okay, cool, you're legit. We'll talk to you. But if you don't have that, there are ways you can present yourself. So the course touches on that. But the other thing that you have a problem with is, even if you find the right place, you might run into other problems like a body corporate, etc. Because now you found the perfect area, the perfect listing, but now you have a train smash because not everybody is so eager to have you rented as an Airbnb. And there are ways around that. Sometimes there are no ways around that, but the course covers that as well. So that's why it's an extremely valuable resource.
Yep.
Okay. Next one. This is Tembisile's last one. I don't know, because there's still a long list of comments. She might have added more. So how much startup capital is needed for this strategy? And are there places apart from banks that can fund this, especially furniture and these extras that you've highlighted to make the Airbnb experience comfortable for your guest?
Okay, let me quickly go into it if I can. So, because I also want to get into some of the questions that other people have asked.
Yes.
So one of my students recently went to a closing down sale of a B&B and just bought all of their stuff for his future Airbnb. So he kind of stockpiled that and got a great bargain. Wow, just amazing. So he got all that furniture coming from there. Another student did the course in the weekend, just went through the whole thing like this. And it's not like a half-an-hour course. There's a chunk of content there for people that covers a whole range of stuff. He did it. He got his first one a week later, and then he realized, man, I want to expand this. And he went and he got an investor to lend him R500,000, and he went and opened up another, I think, 5 and 6 based on that. So yes, other than banks, your network circle, friends, family, he was willing to pay between, I think, 18 and 20% on the cash that investor lent him, because he knew his numbers and how he was going to get a return to be able to pay that investor and still make a profit. I mean, that's significant. Now, that was rent to rent. He didn't buy property at 18% loan on the money, even though, quite frankly, at our current interest rate hikes, we'll probably be there within the next few months in any case, if we keep going on at this rate of, a couple of points every few months. But that is definitely there. How much capital would one need? That depends on where you're going to. I had another client who wanted I think it was about 130,000 Rand rental for a villa, a property. But this landlord said, I will give it to you, but if you have to pay the whole year's rent in advance. That was 2 million Rand. He went, got the money from his investor circle, came back, and then he could get going on that. You might say, well, okay, that's ambitious. Like, I don't think I would do that, but he did it successfully. You might say, well, I'd like to start somewhere. So maybe it's a 10,000 Rand rental or 15,000 Rand rental. So you're going to need probably 2 months deposit, first month's rent. If it's furnished, very little. You're going to need some linen, maybe some other stuff. So you can get going with a relatively short amount of money, and you should be making that back in those first 2 to 3 months in which you're getting that kind of cash back. So there's an idea of some of the capital that you could certainly look at.
I'd say anywhere between 7 and 100,000 Rand, right? That's kind of the playing field to get started. But if you are creative enough and you take some of the things out of the course, you can stagger a lot of those costs.
Yep.
Okay, let's go back just to the questions that were posed prior. I couldn't split them, unfortunately, so we're going to pop them all on screen in one shot. Here we go. Might be very small there, so I'm going to read this side. So one of my questions is whether making your Airbnb pet-friendly gets you more bookings over a place that's not pet-friendly. Your experience, Robin?
Yeah, so I'm assuming here that, you can't make your place pet-friendly if you can't have pets. So I'm assuming that the angle to this question is, if you're in a place that with the surrounding Airbnbs are not pet-friendly, can you differentiate yourself by making yourself pet-friendly, assuming that you can? In other words, if you're in a building, you have a pet-friendly building. Those kinds of things. 100%. It's something which hasn't hit South Africa yet, this pet craze. And what I mean by that is, in the States, again, I'm going to refer to that because I've spent a lot of time there. I know you too, Jacques, have a lot of insights into the States, is pets are like kids. The amount of money that is spent on pets in the US is equivalent to what people spend on their kids. There are pet hotels for pets. We're not talking about a kennel, we're talking a hotel where they have TVs and crazy stuff, because obviously that's what pets are used to in their homes, the sound and all this kind of stuff. It's amazing. It's just incredible. So in South Africa, it is becoming something that people want to get away for the weekend, and traditionally they would have to get a pet sitter, a house sitter. If you can have that option, that certainly will be an attraction. I looked today on the Airbnb filter, in their top filters, you can search for how many adults, how many kids, and there's a pet filter there. It will become significant as we evolve, and as South Africans start to realize, I want to travel with my pet. And of course, we know Airbnb, at least at this stage, has significant insurance on pet damage. So if you have to do deep cleans, extra cleans, all those kinds of things, and there's damage by pets, you're covered. I think it's a great one to do. I mentioned it a couple of months ago in one of my other podcasty webinars, that watch that space. If you can, it's worthwhile looking into. Now, you need to manage it really well, because I don't really want to go somewhere where it is pet friendly, because I just don't want to go and have that smell. It's like,
I was about to say that.
Just because it's, I don't want to go into an apartment that I won't smoke, but it has got smokers in there before me. It's just, so there's the risk of that. Now, that's not always true. It depends on your cleaning processes and how that looks, but it's worth looking into. Okay, can we deal with that one? You want to comment on the pet?
No, you've covered it, the essence of it. So any tips for first-time Airbnb hosts? What are your top three, Robin?
Well, I'll give you the top 99. Number one, get the course. Number two, do the course. Number three, take action. And the rest will follow through to number 99, which is go to the bank and receive your profits. Simple as that.
I agree.
Tip, there's nothing else I can really reiterate than get your skills and take action. I've seen that again and again. And, Jacques, that's one of the reasons that, we started these conversations, because I was changing the model. I've noticing that people who are doing the course, their questions to me were similar and their challenges were similar. And their biggest challenge was, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And that's why I said, you know what? If I have to help people get going, then that's what we do, which is why we said, if you're buying the course now, you get the first 3 months in a WhatsApp group, which is just designed for those people in the Airbnb group cycle, because then you can actually ask questions and get going. You don't have to sit there just hoping for luck to strike. You can actually get those questions going so that there's no reason for you not to be successful. And that's a significant change from before, which was, you could be part of the Facebook group and all this, but now we're saying, nope, you can actually be on the WhatsApp group for those first 3 months, because that's when you have to take action and get things going. There's no excuse of, I'm going to spend the first 2 months studying, take an exam and then go. That's school. This isn't school. This is real life. You want money, you go out and get it. And to do that, we take action. You're not alone. And that's why we've redesigned it that way. And that is a huge benefit. So I like that component. So that's what you have to do. Yeah.
I'm going to add one thing to that. So my tip would be to not waste time and money. And I was a 6-year superhost before I took your course. Then I implemented what you taught, and it skyrocketed my business. But the reality is I didn't do so badly in the first 6 years, but I would have saved myself a lot of time and made a lot more money in those 6 years had I had access to the course from day one. And you now have access, so make your decision accordingly, right?
Yep.
Okay,
100%.
number 3. Can hosts have a secret camera on their Airbnb? Is that allowed? Not to spy, for security. Take it away.
So, of course you can. If you want to get kicked out, if you want to have legal action, if you want to, trust me, you'll be blocked, and they're very strict regulations. You can have cameras in the outside of the property that are not facing anywhere inside the property. And I'm drawing this distinction. Someone says, I have a camera in the passageway, let's say in an apartment block, down the passageway, looking at the front door. But when the front door is open, the camera sees into the passageway of the apartment.
Yes.
Right? Because obviously it does. It opens and you see it.
Yeah.
That is an invasion of privacy. You can't have that. My cameras are above the front door looking out.
Facing away.
I can see who approaches my door. No one, there's nothing that I can see inside in any space. This is not about common spaces. This is about privacy. Airbnb is very strict about that. And you need to then state it in your listing. And actually, Airbnb makes it incredibly easy. It has a function there which says, yes, there are CCTV cameras or whatever the cameras are, security cameras. And it even gives you an ability to detail where, what it's doing, how it's doing, and you need to mention all that up front. Yeah. The same as whether you have these audio devices which measure the decibels. In other words, that's a party pooper, whatever you call it. Those devices that measure frequency, and then they alert you if it gets too loud. I've been alerted a couple of times and squashed a couple of parties before they got out of hand. And before I got the body corporate down my throat, because I have them. I'm looking at it right now. It's there, and it sits there in the ceiling. And you need to just tell people, because they still see this and they think, oh, you're listening to me. It really is strict. So regardless, you just need to follow those regulations. So simple as that.
Agreed.
Be very careful.
I'd say there are two bad things. Like, the worst nightmare for any host is to be reported for an illegal recording device, and it's not true. And the worst thing that can happen is that it is true. So tread carefully and make sure you disclose it and you do it properly, like Robin said. All right, last one on this list. There are a lot of hotels, guest houses that are being sold lately. Is it possible to turn those into Airbnbs? We've already touched on that.
Yeah, and I have noticed that, COVID hit them hard, and they had no idea how to pivot. What's so interesting, I haven't actually watched my course for a long time, because I made that course smack bang, literally the week before the president declared our state of emergency and we were in lockdown. And I'm like, right, I'm going to tell you how to open up your Airbnb. And suddenly he's like, okay, no travel. Everyone stay inside, lockdown. I'm like, and the course takes my growth. I didn't go and say, oh, okay, stop Airbnb. I was like, okay, so what do we do if we're in the situation? Because the fundamentals are the fundamentals. Give me a state of emergency. Give me high season in Cape Town. Give me the lower season in the Godona land. The fundamentals are the same. How do we position ourselves first? How do we dominate our competition? How do we restructure our pricing to attract people? How do we present our listings so that we are like popping out? All those things I talk them through, and it's live. I show you how when level 5 came, level 4 came, level 3 came, how I had to adapt, change the titling, attract different people, all legit. All those things are there. So I'm curious to see if in like 10 years' time, we look back at this and just shake our heads and say, what a weird time this was. It was like a time capsule, but the fundamentals are all there. And of course, now there's also the booking.com section, which is okay. Airbnb is great, but because of competition, we're going to be booking.com, we're going to be Verbo, we're going to be all of them together. And we want to make sure we're benefiting from all of those. And that's now in the course as well. So that's also exciting.
Exactly. Yeah, which is a game changer, right? If you can get that occupancy from 80 to 90%, that's a big deal. All right, next one. So we have a few more. I'd say we have about 4 more. So let's be conscious of the 13 minutes that we have. So Sajida, I plan on setting up my first Airbnb rent-to-rent soon. However, I'm based out of the country for the foreseeable future. Any tips on negotiating with the landlord to enter into the rent-to-rent deal remotely and setting up the Airbnb when I'm not physically there? Would you recommend using a sourcing agent? After you, I have some comments, but...
you want to go first on that?
Okay, cool. So, Sajida, I have done this before. I am based out of the country, and I have negotiated many of these landlord agreements, either through a sourcing agent or myself. So, either can be done, as well as the physical setup. You would be surprised how easy it is to get reliable people. And you can even come and speak to me because we know each other, and I can point you in the right direction depending on where this rent to rent is. But there are many options for getting boots on the ground and people helping you that will not cost an arm and a leg. You will still have to do some of the heavy lifting from abroad. But no, with the technology we have these days, and to give the landlord peace of mind, because I also know you have a good track record in the real estate space, so you can leverage that to make the landlord more comfortable. And I'm sure you have some friends that can vouch for you as well. But yes, entirely possible. Your comments, please, Robin.
Yeah, so people have proven it. They do it again. It's way easier if you've already done it. So yes, as Jacques is saying, he knows how he can do it. He's done it. He carries on doing it. So definitely that. It's obviously more difficult. So I have a lot of students who've done the course who do it remotely from a different province. And I've got some students who've taken this and now have gone to Dubai and opened apartments there. I've got another one who's flying out to the UK and Portugal in August and is going to start and look there. Fundamentals are the same and all kinds of stuff. The same as remote investing. There are some challenges, and Jacques has pointed to those and sounds like a good resource to look at that. My comment on this, though, is if you think that you can just outsource everything without you learning all the nuts and bolts, I don't recommend just handing over the vision that you have for that. So I have some clients, some people who wanted to start, but because of their growth and they've got other properties and other businesses, they don't want to be the Airbnb host. And I said to them, I get that. You set up your first one. You realize what are the variables that we want to control and what is required to create a successful Airbnb. Then when you've got that right, delegate, hand over, step out, do something else. But you always know what's going on, and you know what to measure the people that you delegated to, their performance against. Yeah. That is just make sure that when you're doing that, and it can understand what's going on, so that when you delegate it, someone doesn't take you for a ride, because that's even worse.
Absolutely.
So that would be my comment. Yeah,
I agree. Like, first become the super host and then outsource, right? Like, then those will be two different businesses. All right, Lenny. Lenny says, how do you automate your Airbnb business? I'm listening.
How do you automate the Airbnb business? So there is a large portion of that we can automate, that we do automate, because there's the menial stuff that just takes time, takes energy, takes effort, and it can slip through the cracks. I have one, if you sleep 8 hours a night, 10 hours a night, there are people who are booking and checking in. For example, booking.com, Cape Town, 80% of people are booking by their mobile phones and are booking on the day that they're wanting to check in on as well. So if that is what the stats are, sorry, not 80%, 24% of bookings made are on the day of checking in. That's significant. I had a booking, and we've chatted about this before, that comes through at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm fast asleep. I like to sleep early and get up early in the morning. And if I'm asleep, they can still book, get all the messaging to check in, and be sweetly asleep by the time I wake up in the morning. I wake up and, someone's booked, checked in. Thank you very much. I'll take that. That's automation for me. When someone books, messages are sent to my cleaners. They sent to the managers. They sent everywhere automatically. This is who's booked. This is how many guests there are. This is when you need to schedule a clean. All that information is done. The check-in information, the check-out information, the please review us information, all of that is automated. The business of Airbnb, which is now around you making sure you've got the right cleaning team, you making sure that you're doing your taxes, you making sure that you follow body corporate rules, etc. That is not automatable. That's you knowing about business and getting business fundamentals in place. But the logistics of running an Airbnb, nearly all of that can be automated, but you're always still going to need to have someone just viewing and checking. Because, for example, I often get people, we've seen it more and more actually, who are saying, can I please have an early check-in or can I have an early checkout? And that is super challenging to manage if you've got multiple listings and you've got a set of cleaners who basically have 6 units to clean within 4 hours. It's really difficult to say, yeah, sure, we'll give you a late checkout and the next one an early check-in, and there's just no time. And then that requires some personal communication, which can be challenging. Of course, you can also just say in an automated message that goes out when someone books, in the event that you wish to check in early or check out later, we are not able to accommodate that because of the tight schedule of our cleaners, and we regret if that creates an inconvenience. And that way they then don't argue, and then you've not argue, then they don't recommend or ask for that, and then it doesn't become an issue for you. So there are ways
we do exactly that. So we do exactly that, but we actually have a link where they can chat to the housekeeper, because we always offer early luggage drops. And we've scheduled that at least an hour and a half after the check out of the previous guest, so that there's never a problem there. But the reality is most guests just make use of that. They say to the cleaner, okay, cool, we're going to be there at 12 o'clock, drop our luggage, cool, don't need to early check in, we'll grab keys and then we'll leave. And that just cuts down that communication, because we found that was hours spending time talking to people. So okay.
The challenge with that as well is the more higher value your places are, the more they're expecting some kind of a like a concierge or some flexibility to support them, because they're paying a lot more money. So
yes, exactly. Okay, we've got 2 more questions. Yes, we've got 2 more. Let's quickly hit them. So have you noticed, it's Sajida again, have you noticed a reduction in occupancy irrespective of backup power due to a reduced tourism figure in South Africa? Are most of your customers South Africans or tourists? I'm looking at properties along the Atlantic seaboard in Cape Town.
So I'm sure you can also chime into this. I don't see a reduction. I shared it on my social media that from last year, I think it was September, November, all the way to the 1st of May, I had 100% occupancy. And I was like, and I expect that. That's what I'm wanting. I started crying in May when I had some vacancies, and I definitely saw that as, May, June has always been the lowest season for us here in Cape Town. And it's not just tourism. So it's just, and what I mean by not just tourism is because I also get business people in groups, and because I have different properties. So it's not like, it's only this one for the tourist type. Definitely, I'll probably say a mix of maybe 40 tourists and 60% domestic travelers or locals. And I don't see it as a drop in backup power. I don't see that as why people are not coming to South Africa. People who would come to South Africa already know there's crap that's going on here. They already know that it's dangerous, that it's difficulty, that there's it's just, so they already are prepared for curveballs and for roughing it, that it's a developing country of sorts. So the fact that it has backup power or doesn't, and that there's some challenges, is just par for the course. They already kind of know that, and they're willing to take that. So I don't think it's because of that. We're definitely in a lower season at the moment. So I think that's there. You might find the reverses there with an exchange rate of 19 Rand to the dollar. People are like, let's go to South Africa and travel, because it's like we can do it for free from their side. So there could be an uptake on that. What I want to reframe this as, which is, if you are still attracting and dominating your competition, and even though there is less quantity of people traveling, if it is true, but you're still attracting the top, you'll still be full or have the majority of people there. Even if the general pool is a lot lower, you're still going to have the people at the top. And that has been my experience, where everyone else out there has been complaining, it's been months since I've had guests. I'm like, well, literally till the 1st of May, 100%. I'm not talking 99.9, 100% occupancy rate. And now I have seen that in the low season, but I kind of would expect that. And what I mean by low is I'm talking 85% occupancy, which is still 30% above my competition. So, as I say, you've got to get those skills, learn it and put it in place, and then benefit from that.
I agree. I think there are a few economic factors and a few global uncertainty things that are playing in here. I don't think it's necessarily related to the power, as you said, but I think we are in the slow season right now as well. My one property has still been performing exceptionally, and the other one has taken a bit of a hit. I've actually dropped it below what it was last year at the same period, and it is not as full. But I am by far more full than
Yeah,
everyone else. That's a
yeah.
fact. So
Okay.
I have nothing to complain about. I mean, there's slow months, right? It's like shooting fish in a barrel for 6 months, and the next six are a little bit slower, but that just averages out over time. Okay, there we go. So final comment, and this is a good comment to end it on. So it is: how much is the cost and the duration of the course?
So, Lenny, the duration of the course is you get lifetime access to the course. You can go at your own pace as long as it's fast. And what I mean by that is, there's the time to get in is now. So we want to get going on that. The videos are all there. You go at your own pace. You take your notes. There's the cheat sheets. There's the furniture lists. There's step by step what you should do. I tell you everything that I know. I've literally brain dumped and put there so that you can copy it. And we know with proof that is shown that people have done it, are doing it, and there are going to be lots that will continue doing it. The cost I will leave, I think, for Jacques, probably just to confirm at the moment. I think the listed on is, I think, 18,997. Is that correct, Jacques?
Yes, I'm
around that.
double checking because the
think
price
so.
has been increased, right? The new
We did
modules are
increase
live.
it. For those of you who snoozed and loosed, I'm actually not going to apologize for that. The reason is because if people out there are buying the course, implementing it 2 weeks later, and have made their money back after 1 month, then the value is there, and then it's like, wow, okay, well, let's get this going. So that's why we did increase the pricing. We put in the booking.com section, which is a whole new edition. Again, tells you what are the things, the bare minimum, not the bare minimum, the most important things you need to know about booking.com, and which promotions. Now, it's which are the things to focus on that will bring the biggest return, and not get swamped in the rabbit warren of booking.com. Holy moly, talk about a complicated website that is not very user-friendly and so overwhelming. I tell you how to get there with just the 4 main core things you need to be focused and looked at. And of course, then there's the WhatsApp group where in those 3 months after you have bought the course, you can ask your questions and feel that momentum to get going so that you're not just left behind. So that is there. I'm sure Jacques will tell you how to reach out to their team. You want to do that now, Jacques?
Yes, so just to confirm, the price is 15,997. That includes the new modules for booking.com, and it includes the very valuable WhatsApp group, which you can use just to bounce off your ideas and get advice on, which is very valuable. In order to get in touch with us, you can go to our website. So you will actually see in the comments of this video, the team has just posted the link to our Teachable page where you can actually go and buy it. It's got all the information on there. It's got information on the new modules. And yeah, for us having added booking.com, and I actually added booking.com before it became part of the course, but now I've started reviewing the course and I've also learned a lot again. It was working and it was a bit of a patch job, but now I have a lot more material because Robin is a bit more thorough than I am. So thank you for that. And yes, it will shortcut that journey. And that took one of my properties from about, I would say, 83% occupancy to close to 95%.
Yep.
So that's a game changer, right, on an annual basis. So it's very much worth it to add booking.com, but there are nuances and there are specific issues with booking.com guests that you can get in front of and solve. And once I did those things, I've never had a problem again. So it's very important to do those things right.
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent. So I do just want to add there. I mean, so it's listed, if I'm not mistaken, at 18,997. So you've given them a really good discount there.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you go to, I think even that link that they've got there takes them to 18,997. So if anyone has listened to this and watched this and heard what Jacques has actually said, you better get hold of him. Chop, chop. very
Yes,
quickly.
and I reserve the right to change that price at any time. So fast, it will at least stay that way for 48 hours. So if you've been
Well,
on the fence, go for it, and it might stay longer, but it might be gone in 48 hours. Okay,
yeah.
that's the deal we'll
Okay.
make.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good because my one. That's what it is. It's like
Yes,
that's
yours is
so
18,997. Yeah,
correct. So
there
wow,
we go.
a good
Yes,
price.
good deal.
Yep.
Exactly.
I just wanted to
All
make sure
right.
because I wasn't sure. Okay. Any last comments on then, Jacques?
No, that's it. This was a really good session. We got a few comments here on the thread here that says it was a great session. So I think people got a lot of value out of this. We covered a lot of ground. So thank you for that. I appreciate your
Yeah,
time.
good. You're welcome. Good. Fantastic. And look forward
Cool.
to seeing you the next time.
Yes, next time. Have a good
Good.
one.
Bye bye, everyone.